Well, thank you, Douglas, for this thick package.
I'd like to call to order the June 11th meeting of the Isle of Palms Planning Commission and acknowledge that the press and public were duly notified in accordance with state law. Our first item is the approval of our minutes from our last meeting. Do we have any motions, any comments?
I'll motion to approve.
Have a motion to approve.
Second.
And a second. Any comments or clarifications, any typos there? Just perfect. So all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
No opposed.
Aye, aye, Captain.
New business, review of the recommendations matrix. So
I will tell you.
she'll start right away.
I'll start right away. I just started cross-referencing, word searching through the comp plan to find the exact spots. Some of these were already listed. I didn't get all the way through, but there is, here again, there's some redundancies in here, and then there's issues or certain items that I don't know how we would address. Buying flood-prone property or, yeah, purchasing flood-prone. So that's where I was, unless anybody wants to see exactly where they're located. And you don't want these compressed, correct?
Well, so I would guess the compression is really the initiatives, and I guess I was gonna start by, did anybody need a bigger,
Yeah, right now.
a bigger copy?
Yeah, I figure out how
I see
to
yours.
get part of mine, but I don't have the whole
Oh, you
thing.
don't?
I have to clip mine
If
off.
you want.
Yeah, this is something that's-
My printer doesn't do legal. Or,
That's tabloid.
is tabloid? That's-
And I will say, I mean, I guess just from a starting point, for this meeting, I did want you all to have the full matrix, and then specifically your section of the matrix. The task, I mean, and as you all know, we've talked about each recommendation coming out of the Community Enhancement Committee Task Force, the Sea Level Rise Adaptation Plan, and the Comprehensive Plan have been given a slot in the matrix. They have then been assigned an initiative, which is the far right column, and then assigned a committee. So this is all of the Planning Commission's assigned recommendations to do with as you please and make a recommendation up to City Council on each of these. I guess from my perspective, you all are going to have, and unfortunately I clipped the comprehensive, the source column, which is the second one to the right. That has, you can see comprehensive plan is clipped there. But the last half, which is kind of the bottom half of all of these, is coming from you all to them. So I mean, that's already your recommendations to them. The bottom half, starting with support commercial development only within the parameters. So that's in the comprehensive plan that you all developed, you sent to them. So I think that it would be, I think it would be appropriate for you all to say, yeah, those are our recommendations already from you all to do. That kind of calls your list down to the top half of that.
Right.
If I could, I was thinking that we would possibly prioritize the actionable items that are noted on
Yeah.
that top half
Yep.
and see how we might order those in priority, if we do. And then exploratory and, of course, the aspirational would be at the lower end of the list. And that's just me prioritizing what I'm seeing here as actionable means, okay, they feel like something should be done, could be done. Is it feasible to in timing or financially to be an actionable item? How do we evaluate? And I guess that's what they're asking. Should we, is it really actionable first? There are a lot of them.
Again, maybe just kind of a reaction from, just a personal reaction. If you look at from my perspective, if you were to look at the recommendations coming from the sea level rise adaptation plan, one of those is update zoning ordinances for redevelopment. I mean, there's.
Right.
That's ongoing, isn't it?
That I think, I mean, there's really nothing, that's classified as actionable, but that's something that we're just doing. I know that the context of that was as it relates to to sea level rise. I mean, we could look at that, but this group has already put forth a recommendation that's been adopted that allows, that sets a kind of minimum height, always allows somebody redeveloping their property to go up to 7.3 feet. So you kind of pulled that out of the master drainage
Mhm.
plan, rolled it into the zoning code, that's in there. So then you kind of go down the list, begin development of redevelopment design tool. And then another one, update and enforce zoning ordinances. And then purchase flood-prone property. I would say that almost, I don't know that you could do, I don't know that you could do anything with any of those.
What is the redevelopment design tool?
Yeah.
I don't know what that is. Ron, can you help me here?
Are they referencing
I
the
probably
have
renovation
something.
of properties or tearing down a building and new properties? And
Right.
that's basically dealt with through zoning. That was my first thought when I read it. Oh, we already got that.
And
So what is a
in Douglas's,
development?
what you could do on the Isle of Palms, I think that's on the webpage.
Flow chart, kind of a
Your
flow
flow chart thing.
yeah.
I rely on that all the time as a quick reference through the codes. You know, it has a matrix, what size lot, what zoning you're in, are you on septic, not, lot size, go here, go there, tells you what you can and cannot do. And it's simple enough for, other than the fact that it's a big thing and you gotta zoom in, but that is a redevelopment tool. And it's,
So we have to develop a redevelopment tool?
I don't,
I think the answer is it's already there.
it's already there.
Sorry, I just don't.
Same with the
Right.
zoning. I
Mhm.
mean,
You know,
Enforce,
it doesn't-
that is kind of just embedded in the work that you're doing at every meeting. You are
Mhm.
kind of constantly reviewing,
Yeah.
tweaking zoning
And it
codes.
doesn't get into vertical datum necessarily in that flow chart, but that's, at some point, you gotta look at the ordinance. That's on mine too.
Mhm.
But if, if there could be like for those who don't wanna go through the effort of reading an ordinance, if that flow chart could be expanded to include vertical datum.
Such as,
Flood zone requirements, minimums, the elevation of property more than, 12 inches above the height of the road. Most people, they usually go to their design professional to have that discussion. And even a builder would understand.
Yeah.
So
What
you-
those things are. So it seems like we've already got it, but
So you might, on that one, and we probably should number these, you might suggest update the existing flow chart to incorporate what's already been adopted as a code that kind of says, hey, if
Right.
you're a low lot, build that
Right.
lot up to be
Right.
a safe elevation because
perhaps,
of,
and just letting them know in plain language, if your lot got flood elevation or you're in an X zone, we're still gonna require that you build to 13 feet mean sea level.
yeah.
Things like that, just to keep people,
Well, that's good. That, I will just say,
Mhm.
with Matt gone, the flow chart, this kind of
Yeah.
learn as you go flow chart. I developed that actually for when Matt was coming on board. It's
Yeah.
like, Matt, here's the
Nice.
Right.
working document of how
Right.
you figure out So the plan is for the next guy to use that same flow chart, but
Sure.
that's.
Put
this
it
would be a-
online, let every,
Update it to kind of include some sea level rise best practices. This isn't necessarily a requirement, but
right.
might be a good idea to build your lot up if you're low.
Mhm.
Per ordinance number, such and so.
Right.
How do you all just, and I think it might be, I don't know how to, I've struggled with this, hundreds of recommendations, how to kind of how to eat the elephant. And it might just be that you just kind of go haphazardly around the table as they come up to you. But evaluate and modify the city's tree ordinance to elevate conservation of native trees such as palmettos, live oaks, pines, and wax myrtles. I will just tell you that the city's code is very protective over live oaks, but those other 3 species, pines, there's 0 protection. Palmettos, I would say there's very little protection.
If you take one down, you have to replace it.
You have to kind of account for it, either by a donation or an actual count. You just account for the palmetto you move. But some people, in theory, and we've actually had it happen where somebody will buy a piece of property that's got 30 palm trees on it. They'll remove every one of them, and they'll give the city a $15,000 check to accommodate for the cost of all those. That check goes into the city's tree preservation fund. That fund is then used either to plant new palms or to maintain trees that we have.
Mhm.
So palms, I will say, are kind of half protected. Pines, not protected at all. There was a kind of an emotional reaction to the damage that the pine trees did as a result of Hurricane Hugo. They, a lot of the damage that was caused, not only in the island, but in the entire community, was snapping pine trees. So they were seen as kind of a deficient, I don't know if deficient is the right word, but a little bit of a potential hazard to have around your house. So we have no protection of those. And there is occasional when people will take out a handful of massive pine trees and it stirs a reaction, and they're surprised to learn that we have 0 protection for those. And then wax myrtles, I mean, that's just not, they don't have a trunk.
It's a
They
bush.
typically don't have they're more of a bush. They don't have a trunk that elevates itself to being
Depending
protected.
upon where you live, they're weeds.
Right.
Mhm.
Well, crepe myrtle same. It's
What is
also
a cypress? How does that?
So cypress is, so there's just kind of regular, every other category of tree. Once it has a trunk of 8 inches, it's protected. It doesn't get the same level of protection as a live oak, because again, a live oak is kind of elevated, and then once it's 16 inches, you can't remove it at all unless it's hazardous or it's keeping you from any use of your property. Those trees, other species that are over 8 inches are protected, but allowed to be removed, I would say, if there's a compelling reason for its removal, either it's keeping you from building something or it's causing damage. But if it's not a hazard, then you have to account for its replacement. So generally, I would say every other species over 8 inches gets some level of protection.
unless
not
it's
to the
an
level of
invasive
live.
species.
Yeah, invasive species, we don't,
I've got 2. I don't want to tear them down yet.
2 invasives. Yeah.
Popcorn trees, whatever those are.
Yeah.
Chinese tallows.
Mhm.
Chow, yeah.
Yeah.
So for 7, you're saying it's already sufficient.
For what?
Oh, sorry, I went down and I numbered them. So you're saying that what we have is already sufficient, the tree ordinance?
Well, that would be,
Well,
I mean,
that's
I'm
what
just
we have.
recapping what we have. And I guess the question for the group would be, do you feel like elevating pines, wax myrtles, or palmettos, if there's a recommendation from you all? And I
don't.
never really thought of them in terms of that they are, I guess, native to the island.
Well, only one of them is a tree, well, 2 of them are trees.
Mhm.
Palmetto's a grass. Just to mince words.
Yep.
But botanically, a palm tree or palmetto
Yeah.
tree is a grass. But you know, I think their protectives are there. You take one out, you put one back. Live oak certainly is well clear. You know, if anything, they might have mentioned other types of oak trees that we have on the island, like water oaks and all, but again, still, live oak is always the one that's the most protected in most ordinances. Pines, in most places, other than once it gets to be a grand tree, are usually not protected. And what we were, I think, when we had that heart feel for pine trees, it was more the longleaf pine, which we have fewer of anymore. So just, you know, your crappy old pine in the backyard, I can't see a reason for trying to protect it.
So, just before we leave the subject, the evaluate and modify trees ordinance basically is in place and working quite well. So really don't need to spend a lot of time on
Right.
this.
It's
Don't need to spend any time on it
very
right
similar
now.
to every other municipality's ordinances. It's more about size than anything.
Well, I
Except,
guess the question would be, do you want it, and I don't know if including Palmettos was a reaction to the work, this kind of coincided with the work being done by
Dominion.
Dominion. Just, there is an exemption for utility lines already, so we couldn't have really done much with those. So I don't know if that was part of this, or, and I really don't know and I'm assuming that the inclusion of pines is pointed at the fact that we have no protection for them, and maybe they felt like there was a compelling reason to protect. So, sounding like there's not a consensus here to modify what we currently have. And I would just say, as you will make comments, I'm gonna start there's gonna be a new column, and we're gonna document recommendations, and those recommendations will start feeding up to council, so.
So, I'm sorry, currently it's pine is 8 inches.
So no pine is protected at all by the city.
Does anyone have opposed that?
Nope.
Nope, I went through here,
Protect
Joe.
them.
I'm okay.
They're horrible plants. Trees.
A lot of times, the insurance company will tell you.
Right.
Tear 'em
Chances
all
that
down.
you
They
get
will.
rid of them.
Get rid of, yeah.
All right, I think I'm hearing you all.
right.
Current zoning is
We don't
adequate.
like pines.
If we were in a
We're
different
good with-
location,
Oh, no,
I just came down
that's-
from Georgetown where you're passing all of Volunda's pine forests, and there it's appropriate.
Up north,
You get ready to build, the first thing you do is cut all the pines
Right.
down. Because if you don't take them down, they'll come down to your house.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, ice storms, wind.
All right, let's move it.
and wax myrtle, I don't understand that. I have a problem with them. They're a horrible plant.
Right.
And they grow like tumors. They're like horrible.
Yeah.
And they are protected, because we had a problem on seagrass when we took one, we didn't take out the Hurricane Hugo. Or
Be careful how you say it.
Or Ivan, or whatever it was. The only plant that left our house was that thing we tried to get rid of. And they accused me of tearing it up and throwing it on the golf course. It was 20 feet wide, 20 feet high.
Yeah.
It was horrible.
Right.
So I'd get rid of wax myrtles too.
Well, so they're not currently protected. And
Okay.
I'm hearing you say.
Don't
and-
protect
and
them.
they may- Now, I guess I should also clarify, Wild Dunes does handle trees differently than
Yeah.
the city
Right.
does. So it might be that Wild Dunes protects wax
Because
myrtles.
it's money.
And I think they do protect pines as well.
No. 'cause-
Do they not?
No, because when we cleared our lot, we took all the pines down first thing we did.
Okay.
What about things like a water oak? Are those
Those are protected.
protected?
Because they're.
They're in that medium, you know, that
Right.
if you have a compelling reason, you can't just take them out, like a
Right.
pine tree, you don't have to have any reason, don't have to have a permit, just go take them out. A water oak, they are given less protection than a live oak, but if it's larger than 8 inches,
And before 24.
and less than
18.
24, it's considered a significant tree, which you can remove if there's a compelling reason, but you have to replace it with a donation to the tree
Right.
fund. Over 24, you cannot remove.
Right.
They're then considered historic, but in that kind of in-between stage, those trees are. protected. We actually heard, and I think the planning commission heard a plea from a resident to not protect pecan trees. You know, they're in that category of protected above 8 inches. You can't, they're more protected than a pine tree. And he kind of made the case that they're brittle, they fail over time, they become hazardous. And he had an instance where, you know, the ordinance didn't allow him to remove his pecan tree, and he felt like he should be able to, but nobody kind of carried through with the recommendation to regulate them any differently than we have.
All right, so we've done half of this, we've evaluated it.
We got two or three.
I'm gonna check that one.
Okay.
Explore recommendations for zoning, retrofitting, setbacks for new construction. That is exploratory, and I would say that you all are constantly doing it, unless you all can think of. I don't think there's a need for action unless one of you will tell me there is.
Well, I think the latest discussion we had was the 7-foot, 7.5-foot raising your lot and all of the runoff and the garden.
Capturing,
Yeah.
which I'll tell you, just as an aside, is, I think, working very well.
Okay.
We're stormwater, depending on how much you cover of your lot, that's now being contained on your site. And if you'll recall, there was what we call a black box solution. You
Mhm.
cover 1,000 square feet, you're gonna create 333 cubic feet of storage. It seemed a little bit, to me, kind of random and haphazard, but I think in practice, it's turned out.
Adequate.
Turned out to be a good change.
Great. So I
So we're gonna
think
say that
that's,
one's ongoing?
I would say so. As issues arise.
The engineers are now blaming the fact that we have too much grass on the marina. So the water is seeping through the grass and rotting the metal wall
On the back
from the
side,
backside.
you should have had more concrete?
God only knows what this is.
Well, grass is not great it doesn't hold water back.
But
that well.
you can't build on it.
Right.
because
Trees, shrubs?
they have their load. I don't believe what they're saying. I said no, they're not.
Just going up on the list, I'm not sure why, I'm kind of going. Focus on the acquisition of properties to increase our public spaces, contact the beach company to identify small pocket parcels they own, monitor real estate listings of properties located between the current recreation center property and Waterway Boulevard, evaluate purchases that could enlarge the recreational footprint.
Somebody moved
That's
over
it.
from Mount Pleasant.
I was- Good one.
Yeah, they wouldn't let my son on the soccer team over here, so I need more soccer fields.
I think, I do, this kind of idea of, and I've heard good, bad, and different, but the city kind of monitoring adjacent parcels to just acquire. If they're really I think to any land owned by the city, if there's an opportunity to just have it in safekeeping. You know, and an example of this is the city bought 2 residential parcels behind the public works site. That's been kind of heralded as a great move. It's also been criticized as a stupid move. So it depends on how you see that. But that is, I think, just in practice, a thing that happens. If something immediately adjacent to a city property comes up for sale, it probably should be evaluated.
Well, the whole marina purchase was
Yeah, the
kind
marina
of
purchase was that way.
contentious that way.
Yeah.
Yes, no, save it, don't save it.
Um,
Can't wait for losing some days.
The beach company, contact the beach company, we can, probably is not, probably is a good idea. I think that we know from the tax rolls what they own. Example of this would be the triangle at Seventh Avenue. That's exactly what the Water and Sewer Commission did. That triangle was there forever.
Missed an opportunity for a beautiful house.
Were you
Did you
drawing
design
that?
one? Did you apply for variance?
We never got that. He couldn't buy the lot. Nobody would sell it to him. The beach company wouldn't sell it to him.
The triangle
Mm.
over.
By Seventh?
There were a handful of requests for variances.
Yeah.
They did-
Well, we didn't go that far. We were just playing around with this football player who
Oh.
loved our design for that lot and wanted to try to buy the lot so he could have his,
Well, it was for
His
sale
neighbors.
for years.
yeah.
His neighbors would hate him.
Oh, yeah, everybody would hate him. I'm used to stuff like that.
Not
Um,
you.
I don't know how, it's a neat thing to have in, perhaps the comprehensive plan, continually evaluate the purchase of property that makes sense at the time.
Yeah.
Take it off the tax rolls.
Yeah, true. So,
Or just stop development. But yeah, I don't know how to address that. I think it needs more discussion perhaps on how do we implement a program and then suggest that council put aside some money each year for the future acquisition.
Yeah.
of course, the Greenbelt, I mean, there is the Greenbelt
The
program
grant
that does
money,
have
yeah.
money. That is the money that we use to buy, and that's another
Carmen
example,
Bunch,
the
yeah.
park adjacent to the Harris Teeter.
Mhm.
That was partially a donation from the beach company to work out the road
Mhm.
right of way between that parcel and the Harris Teeter. Partially Greenbelt funding, partially city funding. So that's, it does happen on occasion. I will say it's, and from my perspective, very haphazard when it does happen. So maybe that could be unorganized. I mean, at the very least, we could probably identify the random parcels still owned and taxes being paid by the beach company.
And as far as
Which is the first part
the
of that.
recreation department, I mean, it touches, the ball fields touch 2 houses. The building itself back up to 2 houses between 27th and 29th Avenue. There's those homes down the waterway. Some point might make sense to be looking at those to expand the current footprint of the recreation department. I don't think we want to cross the street anywhere in that area, but where it is contiguous with the street footprint, yeah.
So is it safe for me to classify that one as, you agree, monitoring the real estate listings adjacent to the recreation department is a smart thing to do? And contacting the beach company is something that we can do. We can do that. We can see what they have.
Yeah, you're
But it
interested in,
Generally, it sounds like there's agreement that this is it's a good aspirate, and it is classified as aspirational and expensive and long-term. Sounds like you all would
As
agree
these things occur.
as they occur.
Does this link at all with the one that describes purchasing flood-prone property, 213 down further? This is from the
Well,
sea
for
level
different
rise.
purposes.
Different purposes, yeah, but in actuality, it ends
Right.
up being almost, you could be the same
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I had a meeting this morning that a property is dual zone in the conservation zone as well as commercial, very wide business zone. It's like, well, you can't do this because the future use is gonna be conservation, and so we won't let you build this, we'll let you build that. Not in our jurisdiction, our neighboring jurisdiction.
So it's gonna be conservation. They're enforcing
Correct.
something that is gonna happen.
Is gonna happen, even though presently it's not. It's there, and it's, of course, these are people that you need to sue to make straight. But, yeah, it's parcel, a third of an acre of high ground and 4 acres of wetlands. And so the 4 acres of wetlands, of course, in the conservation district, and they won't allow you to do specific
Development.
conditional uses because their future use will be conservation. I don't know how you really can get away with that.
On the floodplain, I think that, I don't know, I kind of look at the, terrible thing to say, the federal government kind of looking at that sort of thing. Where
And that
they
is
have
true.
continual flood issues on
Right.
property. I would think that the federal government would want to take it off the FEMA rolls in terms of flood insurance.
Yeah, there are grants
Yeah.
to allow cities to do that.
Right.
I don't know that.
Charleston was
it-
looking at
Yeah, City of Charleston did a whole
Yeah.
West Ashley
Oh,
neighborhood.
yeah,
Yeah.
they picked up that
Then
whole
this
complex.
West Ashley neighborhood I was trying to do an ADU, she happened to be in the county. County wouldn't let her do it. And I suggest, well, your neighbors are in the city, why don't you annex? I called up the city, yeah, we don't want it.
Not that one, 'cause we're gonna have to buy it.
Because we're gonna have to buy.
So, but that's we're jumping around a little bit, but that's
Yeah.
it might be that a grant would make that
Hmm.
an opportunity, and it
Mhm.
certainly would, if that funding was available and it made sense for parcel. We do happen to have one project that's finishing up and another project that it appears that FEMA, I guess we're reading now that FEMA may not be here next year, but that they're,
Something will be there.
that we're doing one project now that's elevating a home, working with a homeowner in the Forest Trail subdivision to elevate that house. It had multiple flood plains,
Yeah.
so same kind of theory. FEMA was saying, okay, we're having to pay out $200,000 each time it floods. It'd be cheaper for us to give a grant to pay for the elevation of that house. There's one underway, being completed, and there's a second one, and they actually got somewhat kind of aggressive about notifying people that were in that class of property about this grant opportunity. So there seems to be interest and in that situation, they're not funding the acquisition of the property, but they're funding the retrofitting of the property to make it better able to withstand flood.
It doesn't impact the municipality of the Isle of Palms if a property continuously floods. That becomes a federal government, that's, they're spending the money, we don't.
Personal property.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
more of a federal, it's more of a
It's-
flood insurance issue
It's
than
a
city.
nuisance for the city, but
It
it's
is a
not
nuisance. In these grant applications, we do assign a value to us to have such properties in our community. So we do say that
Mhm.
it's a detriment to us
Mhm.
to have those properties in our community. And, paints a bad picture of you're buying in an area where houses are getting, so we
Right,
don't
yeah.
like them to be in our property, in our community, and being constantly damaged.
But I think that the buyback of homes really falls into the federal government
Yeah.
issuing of grants or outright them buying it.
So
Yeah,
on
'cause
that
I-
one, since we're bouncing around, I will just, in our column, say that you will support that. It is in there as an actionable,
Okay.
I don't know if that's, we could also change that to aspirational. That probably is, maybe a little bit more aspirational. But I'll add a bullet explaining the grant funding source that would be available to do that, since there is one.
But I think this is more not about modifying the house so it's flood resistant. It's not having a house there at all.
That's correct.
So that it's basically a pond.
Yeah.
Somewhere where the water, because no matter what, make it less flood resistant, the water's gonna go somewhere.
That's
Right.
right.
Into the next neighbor's house or
Yeah.
in the street. So I mean, either way, so I think sea level rise plan is, that's an area that can be used as storage.
Yeah.
I would say.
Yeah.
Not one more property that's dumping onto the street.
So am I good to put that one as you will support that position, but you would support it with the use of,
Federal
Grant
grants,
money, federal grant.
Well, or grants, yeah.
That's,
or Greenbelt, I guess there could be. I'll just say grants, federal or
Yeah.
county grants.
Oh. Okay, never mind.
Yeah, I think to Rich's point, it does, those two are they're kind of linked, right? So maybe all right, still working up, so I think you guys, well, actually, on that one, I think we're saying you will support that recommendation. We'll look at the beach companies' portfolio to try to identify those, and we will just, on an ongoing basis, continue to monitor real estate listings. Going up from that one, determine feasibility of bike route off the main roadways and sidewalks through neighborhoods or other low-traffic areas, i.e. Waterway Boulevard on the eastbound side. So that is a cycling enhancement from the Community Enhancement Committee.
I don't know the details for the waterway multi-use path, but is that addressing that?
To some
That's on the,
degree,
that's on the left side, heading eastbound, that's on the
Yeah.
opposite side, I guess, right? But
right, yeah, that one,
It's really the west side of Waterway Boulevard is where the path currently is.
so I think this is saying explore doing it on the other side as well,
Now
right?
you're in the people's front yards for the most part. On Waterway anyway.
Oh, no, eastbound side,
Mhm.
that's the
That's-
side it's on, yeah, east.
No, it's.
I think it's east that side.
Eastbound is heading towards Wild District, right south.
Yeah.
Oh, that's right. Yeah,
But
you're right.
that flowed a lot last night too, even the ocean island.
Now, which end of the island?
Yeah.
West, east.
Yeah.
So that is saying add a bike route on the other side of Waterway where there's not currently one, correct?
Why do you need more than one bike path?
Well, if you have them on opposite sides of the road, you're compelled to have to use them if you're a biker.
But-
And you listen to the law.
Well,
They use
half
them
the
in-
bikes are motorcycles, I mean, they're all electric bikes now.
Yeah.
Yeah, I walk every day down Waterway and back, and it's a lot of bicycles.
Is it?
A lot. And it's, yeah, there are a few kids, but not like you see in some other areas. It's heavily traveled, because there's not traffic there. There's no obstructions, there's
Yeah.
very few, there's one stop sign. And it is folks coming from Mount Pleasant all the way over here. The path of least resistance.
I think that's a
I
good
don't have a
idea.
problem with recreational bikes, like, kids on them and all. It's the people who come in gangs of 12 that are doing the Tour de France or
Yeah.
Tour de Alpine.
Mhm.
I'm against that, for bringing any of that back. We've got enough of it right now.
Yeah, they're,
Getting out of the
they're,
driveway, sometimes it's 20, 30 of them.
Saturday morning.
Yeah, it's,
they're
they don't slow
exclusively in the
down.
road though, right? And
Yeah.
they wanna
Stay
be
here.
in the
Most-
road, they're gonna
most
stay in the
of them, yeah.
road.
And they're going to go up
They're not gonna be on
Palm.
the sidewalk now.
They're never
Mhm.
kind of on a path or a sidewalk. And I guess, Ron, you're saying that you believe if there's a detached sidewalk, that they have to be on that
If
side?
there are two dedicated bike lanes, one on each side of the road.
Attached or detached, or it doesn't matter?
Well, I don't know that it matters.
Mhm.
But when we were exploring different things for Palm
I
Boulevard,
remember
that
this.
had come
Mhm.
up.
Yeah,
And somebody had offered, we have it on one side of this stretch of Palm Boulevard, you're not compelled to have to use it. But if there was one on the opposite side, you are compelled, directionally, to have to stay in those bike lanes. Of course, that means enforcement and knowledge
yeah.
and,
And I would guess the tour group, if there is an attached bike lane attached to the road, they want to be in that.
Right.
They're happy to be in that.
Sure.
lane.
I would think so too.
Um,
Kind of like the connector.
But
It's
it's
just
just
those-
not really wide enough for all these guys to be riding.
No, they'll be in the road still.
Yeah.
And we have no room on that end of Palm to provide bike lanes.
That's-
And I
So
almost got hit by a
between
biker on the
21st
sidewalk, which he said, "Look out, bike lane." I said,
Right.
"That's sidewalk, actually." He about got off the bike to beat me up.
That's why you carry long sticks and throw their spokes.
Delete that.
Yeah, right, delete that, Amy.
I'm marking this is not for kids.
It's that time of year, guys.
Do as I say, not as I do.
Yeah. Related to this, the city, the Council of Governments, and it's not really bike routes, but they are conducting with the CVB's funding a walkability study, so kind of related, but this idea of getting pedestrians, identify the routes where pedestrians are naturally in the road, creating a plan and kind of a long-term strategy to identify places where we should have facilities to safely get pedestrians out of the road. So related, but not directly to bike routes.
Well, we have the Battery to the Beach trail, and I'm not even sure where it is anymore right now.
Right.
But I know it comes to Sullivan's Island. Does it continue
Yeah.
through the island?
It's on one way.
Is it?
Yeah, there's
'Cause
signs
I
as
haven't,
well,
I
as I ride it.
haven't paid attention.
It seems,
This,
I think it was supposed to kind of come across and then maybe go over to Ocean because it was less,
Okay.
it was less crowded with, and then kind of go down
Like
Ocean,
Charleston and around.
kind of around
Yeah.
through the S curve, and then I think on the waterway to the marine. I mean, I do think the city has always looked for opportunities to enhance
Mhm.
cycling paths. And I guess it's partially in reaction to what Sandy's describing of just people casually on bikes kind of all over the island as a convenient way to get around. And then we have the other issue that Tim is referencing of the kind of hardcore people who might be riding from, you know, Folly Beach out here on a bike, Battery to Beach route.
I mean, you want the cyclists not on Palm between, 20th and, you don't want them there. You want them on Waterway.
They're
Yeah.
easier to
First
hit
off.
on, Paul. Come on.
And delete.
I was gonna say.
Sandy, you and I have to leave.
Believe that. Anyway.
Just turn your mic on.
Geez. I'm just kidding, JK.
Well, I think that I mean, determine the feasibility of a bike route off the main roadways. So I think what you're kind of referencing, Rich, is the same thing. that-
So,
you're
It's
just saying,
listed to go that way anyway. All the
Right.
signs say go down Waterway.
And it-
You're gonna have a
makes more
multi-use path, which is,
Right.
so I think that's step one anyway, to see how that goes for a lot of the casual biking.
Yeah,
Anybody else who's really a road biker is gonna stay in the road, but you just wanna have maybe a space, or at least that shoulder's not bad.
Well, I think if you have dedicate some research to see where the bike paths should be enhanced.
Yeah, that's, yeah.
Keep them off of Palm, back on Waterway. Don't let them in Wild Dunes.
Don't let.
They'll come in and ride around Waterway.
Yeah.
And, they yell at you if you're walking your dog. I mean, it's insane. I mean, but I think if you enhance a big bike trail, then they have to stay on it.
Hmm.
yeah, the big pinch point's just past here where you have to pop out on the Palm. There's no way to get through the shopping centers on that
Right.
block of Palm. So it'd be nice to
The-
enhance the golf court,
Cart path.
and
Yeah.
walking and
That's fun.
bicycling.
I wonder, I gotta figure out how to get from like the supermarket to this side. I've not really taken that adventure.
through 14, around,
Well,
through the intersection.
Yeah, because
Yeah.
I'm not generally, you
You
can
have to
cross,
go
but then you have to go around
pop
through the back
out
of your
over
place.
here.
Yeah, I just haven't found that route yet.
On a golf cart?
On a golf cart. I've taken a golf cart to City Hall before, and I've left it at the liquor store and walked over. Because I couldn't figure out.
Well, you get in the left lane and turn. That's
Yeah,
what I
over to
do.
Delta.
Yeah.
Through that part.
Mhm.
Okay.
Go through Delta, cut through Sandy,
Yeah.
or go.
Yeah, getting back to the bicycle path, I think if we're gonna talk about bicycle paths, let's go up with a plan to do something, a nice bicycle path, wide enough for 2 bikes, and get it away from the traffic. Which would be Waterway.
I would say that, I think that
Mhm.
is, I think you all are saying very similar to the
Oh, yeah.
recommendation, determine feasibility for a bike route off the main roadways and sidewalks through neighborhoods or other low-traffic areas, i.e. Waterway Boulevard or East Side. So I think I think I'm hearing that you
Mhm.
guys think that's a good idea. How we, how you determine feasibility. We are doing this, as I mentioned, right now with the Council of Governments for walking paths.
Mhm.
And they happen to be inventorying all the walking path infrastructure right now. Would actually seem like a pretty easy tie-in to do it, to expand their scope, like right now, to do this, if you will. It's kind of underway. The pedestrian part's being funded by the CVB. We could probably ask them about, hey, dig into this, help us a little bit with expanding it from pedestrians to bike paths. And it'd probably be kind of a nominal
Yeah.
expense.
Sounds like a good idea.
Yeah.
All right, so on that one, I'm gonna say, discuss expanding scope with COG on ongoing pedestrian, on walkability study. Yeah, that's, we could do that kind of now with
Mhm.
pretty little.
And the one above it goes with that, right?
Oh,
Create a
much.
clear path off the connector to bike to the Front Beach County Park, incorporating the existing path from 14th to Breach End.
That's on Palm.
Yeah.
The existing path
It's
is a
actually
bike
right there.
path. Right.
Yeah, it's like this wide.
Right-hand
I think
side.
they're looking for something that goes straight down.
Mm.
Create a clear
No, and
path.
there isn't a,
It's not safe. You could do it, but it's not.
they've,
So it's crossing, I mean, it's really an enhancement of the existing facility to cross Palm, correct?
to get to the front beach,
To
yeah.
get to the Front
Well,
Beach and
there's-
County Park.
They have to just follow the pedestrian crosswalk. I mean, that's what it's there for, protect the pedestrians from the cars.
Yeah, to Rich's point, I guess you just add this to the, if we're gonna ask the COG
Yeah.
to look at doing this, we would ask them to focus.
I'm always confused where we're at.
I know, you have to.
Connectors over there.
Connector's over there, right?
Mhm.
Yeah.
So it's on this side.
Right.
of the
I'm sure they're
connector to get
looking
across
for
the
maybe-
road.
Straight,
Yeah.
straight through
There's no
14th
pedestrian
Avenue. There is-
walkway.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Not coming down,
There's a pedestrian
turning right,
crosswalk.
turning left like
The
on
other side.
Ninth
You
or
have
something.
to stop and hit the button and wait for it to turn green.
You have to
Right.
go to the Harris Teeter side,
No,
Yeah.
No.
you can walk right up to your sign, that-
Mhm.
but then I guess once you get to your
there's
sign,
no
there's nothing
sidewalk
there.
and there's no
Yeah.
bike path from my office to the front beach, basically.
You'd have to
on
cross the
that
street on
right-hand
the park
side
side.
of the
At
Right.
street.
some
It's on
point,
the
you gotta
park side.
cross.
Mhm. It's
Yeah.
on the park
Oh,
side, right?
On
right
the
behind
left-hand
you.
side, there is a
Yes.
sidewalk.
Mhm.
Yes.
Well, you don't have to go straight, you go left at the bottom of the connector and then go straight across on the opposite side to get to the park. And that would match you up with the sidewalk.
Is there not a side, I think, is it an issue of lack of right of way?
I
Between
think
your
there's
property and
plenty of
theirs.
right-of-way there, it just isn't utilized necessarily. Actually, it's got signal boxes, electrical connections, and
The pole for the, it's all
Mhm.
kind of right there.
Yeah.
So would your recommendation be to wrap that suggestion in with potential work from the COG?
Yeah.
That's our busy one light.
That's true.
That's our
Already-
one light.
With a camera.
Well, there's two, one faces that way. and-
So consider adding more crosswalks and sidewalks island-wide based off data from walkability study with emphasis on 27th, 28th, 29th, surrounding the recreation center. This one I do think is what the COG is doing, so
Mhm.
I think that one's underway. So you can check that.
So that's 1, 2, and 3.
Well, we're gonna get back to it. One is already literally underway. 2 and 3 will talk to the COG and report back.
Are they doing that anticipating parking down there on the rec center? Opening that up to public parking?
Not that I'm aware of.
That's really far from the beach.
Yeah, it's 4
That's
blocks.
4 whole blocks. If you're going down to Sullivan's, they parking on Palm now,
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
or Jasper.
Mhm.
Actually, I've seen playing pickleball, I've seen people park there and walk to the beach.
Yeah.
It's really not
All
that
the
far.
time.
It's not that bad.
It's 4 whole blocks. You gotta get an Uber.
Yeah. Well, some entrepreneur.
Be a 3-hour.
16-year-old with a
Yeah.
golf
Well, I
cart.
think of the
With those rickshaws.
Halloween not ghost tour, what is it?
Those,
Where the
ghost-
kids march down to the beach.
Well, it would be,
They meet at the rec and-
I read this differently as to create a more walking-friendly recreation area, and I'm thinking not necessarily sidewalks, paving paradise, but some nice gravel walkways where you can walk around the recreation. That 27th, 28th, and 29th Avenue area, there's a lot of, you can get a lot of mileage in,
Kind of like a little
walking
track.
that.
Oh, almost kind of a track.
Yeah,
Exercise.
I mean, that's what I'm reading here, to make it more walkable. Number one,
Yeah, 27, 28,
Yeah.
29,
oh, I'm not making it,
surrounding the rec center.
yeah.
Put a big track around it.
Well, it's, right now, it's just all grass. There's no real sidewalks down there, other than in and out of the building from the parking lot.
But connect all those roads, kind of give,
Well, maybe that's what they're asking for.
I think it is.
I think that's the
I
way
thought
I
you were
read it.
saying like nature walk. kind of,
Yeah.
But you're saying, but I think we're saying sidewalks out adjacent to the driving.
Yeah, you put down a coarse sand shell that's permeable and just create
So
a
it wouldn't be a
nice
sidewalk, it'd be like a
trail.
path.
Yeah,
Is that what they're asking for?
that's the way I read it.
All right, I'm gonna ask the COG, again, they're doing a walkability study.
Okay.
I'll ask them, and that's literally what they're doing. They're asking for places of focus, and I'll just say, take a close look, 27th, 28th, 29th, around the rec center, and study that area for, I'm not positive I'm asking for like connecting people showing up, or if it's like a walking nature path for exercise around the, because if it's in the right of way, it'll have to be concrete, it won't be a gravel. The DOT won't allow gravel in the right of way. So to do gravel stuff, it would need to be on our property.
Don't tell that to
I'm
my
talking-
neighbors.
Talking about shell sand and not a, I don't know what they require.
You don't like roadside sidewalks?
Yeah, I just hate to keep paving things. We have a runoff problem.
Yeah, right.
You have to be able to do a bucket test.
Go back to there.
Do a bucket test.
We're all gonna take turns doing Matt's
paying
bucket test.
The bucket test.
There you go.
All right.
But you've been, have y'all been to parks where they have exercise stations and their little trails
Mhm.
through and you
Yeah.
know.
I think that's different than what's,
Well,
I
I'm,
think
Like
this
they're
is
talking about there.
connecting the people coming to the rec center to sidewalks in the roads.
okay.
Sandy
I
wants
was taking
something
it
else.
to the next level.
Sandy's gonna add to the list.
The
He's
median,
gonna add-
the median
Frisbee
age is
golf?
60.8 years, correct?
I met some guys
Yeah.
who
Who in the hell's gonna
design.
use a
Oh,
walking path around,
From
when you can
Asheville.
just walk around your
I
neighborhood?
don't know, I
That
wish
makes
I had
sense.
sidewalks with asphalt.
Oh.
I wish
He is
they were
frisbee
paths.
golf.
Nice,
Hmm?
soft
There's
path.
already frisbee golf.
Oh, out here?
Yeah, there's 4 or 5 buckets there
Oh, at the rec center.
in the rec center.
Yeah.
Frisbee golf.
All right.
I used to just make up my own in college. They sit that trash can over there, that's about a bar 4 or 3 beers.
Used to. It goes there.
What, the one with the beer and the ice in it?
Mhm.
Man, I wanna throw my Frisbee in that.
All right, you will have gotten through
Or a little
all of
punchy.
the recommendations that are not part of the comprehensive plan.
Mhm.
So I would say we have a little bit of homework to do on those. And then let's, unless something else pressing comes up between now and your next meeting, let's spend the next week meeting going through the comp plan recommendations.
Yeah.
And hopefully by that time, we will also have comments back from last night's meeting. So that'll kind of tidily wrap up the comprehensive plan, and you could give some additional kind of focus on these points.
Makes sense.
Sound like a plan?
Sounds
We're
like a
checking
plan.
the points from halfway down, or down.
The only thing, did we talk about launching a pilot program for private low-impact development?
Oh, Jesus.
No, we didn't.
No, we did not.
We, well,
I don't know what
Just
to do with
erase
that, but
that.
I'm just saying, it's one that we didn't hit.
Yeah, that is correct, we did not.
and I want to say there's some
Wait, which one is that? one?
commentary in our
It's maybe
197, number
194
197?
comp plan about.
Oh, I'm just
about
looking at,
Oh, yeah.
Nine.
Development,
Number 9.
rebuilding.
mhm.
I
Yeah.
think of development, you're tearing a house down and you're starting with a vacant lot, and you're gonna redevelop that lot.
Mm.
And I think our
That's what we already
zoning
did, didn't we?
kind of does all of that.
We have kind of bounced around, and they, in the sea level rise adaptation plan, maybe as part of reviewing this recommendation, we pull this out, but it was things like, what are they called, Ron, kind of
The rain garden.
rain gardens.
Rain gardens.
Things like that, kind of a credit.
Mhm.
I do think, and maybe this is just a point for further discussion, but we did not latch on to rain gardens per se, but I think those catch basins that you all did
Right.
recommend and are now codified have a very similar, if not identical, purpose. Catching the water, kind of allowing it to percolate in.
Well,
So-
So you
some of
may
the-
have done that.
Yeah, some of
Managing
the
the
stuff that they had
size.
also visually showed us were things that were more aesthetic. Like a true rain garden that might have a planting bed of flowers, but actually contains water, captures water, things of that nature. But we were trying not to get and discuss the aesthetic and went for something in our drainage that would physically work and be something we could all understand without needing to hire civil engineers so that then we'd have to hire a civil engineer to fight back and.
You know where they had a lot of the flooding in 38th on Palm?
Mhm.
There's a small house, 38, 10 or 12 or something. They have a huge rainforest, and it doesn't work with the shit. I mean, it just doesn't work at all. I mean,
Yeah.
that's where we had the flooding
Sure.
last year, the year before, where, I mean, it was going up the house.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah, 38th and Palm is
They
bad.
can only, yeah, that's real.
That's that's our next stormwater project is in that roadway because, and that is just
So
bad.
the one in the ocean, the little tiny white house, that looks like they put a fence up, they have a rainforest, and it just did not work.
Hmm.
And they spent a lot of money on that thing for some reason.
Yeah, when you
In
low, you
hopes.
low.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, kind
All
of
these
back.
devices really don't
All the
work when there's
rain.
been excessive flooding and a lot of rain. I mean, they're temporary drainage.
Yeah, again, I kind of look like that, this was in our black box solution.
Yeah.
We discussed the runoff, we have a smaller footprint, lot size restrictions. I don't know how much more we want to limit.
What is low-impact development?
So,
Where are you at?
Ron, you would probably be best to answer this, but I think it's these things that capture
Capture
stormwater.
stormwater.
So it's Things like rain gardens,
Which are,
bioswales.
yeah, things that are not
We
man-made
adopted
construction.
those
Well, these are
black
man-made,
box,
but
so to speak.
short of,
Very,
A drain
Backflow
pipe,
drain
not
pipes.
not a gray drain pipe, but something that kind of allows you to
Okay.
naturally contain the water.
more
And we
aesthetic,
require
lower impact.
an engineer to validate that now?
No.
It's, well, a landscape architect or a civil engineer
Yeah.
does have to sign off that you're not changing patterns, you're not increasing the amount of water that runs off, and you're having to incorporate.
Which would be a lower
retention.
impact than just redeveloping a lot, elevating it 7.5 feet.
So they want to launch a pilot program?
So I would say, and, you know, kind of thinking through what the Environmental Advisory Committee did with the native plant, you know, there's benefits to native plant material. It needs less water, it needs less attention. And so the Environmental Advisory Committee did a pilot program at the same 7th Avenue triangle that, from my perspective, and they tried to, make people aware of the benefits of those type plants. I think that this is kind of the same vein as that, where we would do, and I don't know what it would be, if it would be at the rec center, we would do some kind of bioswales, or we would somehow give an example of what it might look like, how it might work. And I can see that, I guess I'm starting to wonder out loud if that wouldn't be an undertaking for the Environmental Advisory Committee, because they seem to, they did such a great job with the native planting garden. And I don't know how many people have planted. It's hard to measure the success of that in terms of action in the community, but I do know that it's been warmly regarded by people and received.
Not something we would codify, so
Yeah, it
we don't
wouldn't be a
really need to be
coaching.
talking about it. And let, some of those other entities handle that.
Yeah.
Awareness and.
So what
So
they've
I'm-
done at Seventh Avenue is temporary
That's
until the water company decides that they need to make utilization of that
That's
real
correct.
estate.
That's correct. It was a 2-year,
point.
do it. Hopefully the message will spread. It'll give an example. And then, I don't know that they're gonna come out right at 2 years and mow it under, but they would certainly be within their rights to do that. We would be grateful to have had the 2 years, so
Mhm.
it was,
Well, I'd
in
like,
theory, it's supposed to just kind of naturally start being native and beautiful, and they shouldn't require a lot. So probably will just stay in place until they use it for something else.
buy one of those houses by the rec department, knock it down, and put a nice room garden in as an example.
Well, use the federal, we could, if it's flood prone, buy it with a federal grant. Do like 4 of these with one property.
Yeah.
Maybe it's owned by the beach company, or Pocket Park, all of them.
Can we move it over to the environmental
Sounds like there's
committee to
general support
explore more of that?
of that, but maybe we
See what they have for us?
see if they can expound on that. I took out the column for numbering these. I should have left that in. Sounds like Rich has it on his computer.
Yeah.
And, Suzanne, but, okay, I think that's good. We'll continue, we'll just go through the comprehensive plan ones next time, along with the comments from council. Very good. That's all I have.
The more I think about the transportation issue and the Department of Transportation kind of not really seeing the need for anything to be done, it does bother me that we've got 2 lanes on Palm and 2 more lanes on Palm and 14th Avenue. You're funneling down 5 lanes to, it's really 3, to 1 on the connector, and I just, we talked about that study last night, and I think I can pretty much summarize what's wrong and where the pinch point is. I don't know that we need to spend that money. And yet, even if we do, and that's the conclusion, that you have 3 lanes coming down to 1, which is basically what Stantec told us. I would like to see us add something to that comprehensive plan, that we continue to work with SCDOT to a conclusion for the bottleneck that we have. I don't know how to say it.
I don't have the comp plan goals and objectives, but I think pretty sure that's in there.
I don't remember if it was that specific.
No, I have it.
I second it.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's,
Jeff, I think you kind
Yeah,
of brought
brought
this
that up.
he
point
might,
up.
he might have mentioned.
But didn't, I mean, isn't it, I think it's in there. And kind of ongoing, and our hands may be tied a bit, but.
I know that they are, but again, the squeaky wheel gets the grease, and if we don't, maybe we need to go on to a letter campaign voluntarily, or write some letters, and hey, will you sign this, Ron? Thank you. And, just pass it around the community, and please consider some of the changes that have been suggested for the connector.
No, pretty much.
It's already
And
in
they're
there.
already in there.
Is it in there?
Well, the bike
Oh, there it is.
roads, bikeway, the sidewalks right here.
Which section are you on?
I think it's 3-1.
Oh, I'm over, all right, 9.
9.1.1.
That's where it was,
include
9.
funding
Mhm.
in the 2023-24 budget to initiate a comprehensive traffic study for the island, improve traffic flows and
Oh.
reduce congestion.
There you go, 23-24 budget, that's outdated.
I did change that, I think. in the
Did
letter.
you?
I think I sent that to, the one I think I sent to
What
council.
section is that?
The next.
Section 9. Mhm.
Ron, isn't just below that,
Transportation.
work with DOT,
Work in close collaboration with SEDOT staff to ensure the solution
Yeah.
that are developed can be implemented within their network. That's what this one.
it's not strong, I think maybe that was
Section, is
just.
911 not?
That was not.
Yeah, I think it needs to be specific to the traffic pinch points, I don't know how else to say it, at Palm and 14th and Isle of Palms connector to move traffic, manage traffic more efficiently.
Through that.
Well, and I think we also need to talk
Extremely
to our
inefficient.
paramedics, our emergency services providers, whether it's the police or the fire department or the county, because the traffic flow right now for them is dangerous.
Yeah.
And they come flying up the middle, and half the cars are over in the
Okay,
middle.
that's true.
And half are in the right lane. And if there's a pedestrian walking, they're dead meat.
Well, and I know there is language in comp plan about working with Mount Pleasant on the other end, but I didn't know if there was specific to that intersection at the connector in 14.
Well, the only problem that Mount Pleasant has is when it's backed up coming back on our island, because it'll back up to Rifle Ridge.
Yeah.
So people are cutting through Seaside, and I mean, it's kind of crazy.
I
Oh,
will
yeah.
say, in Memorial Day, we got it, we got the complaints both ways, that we got it from Mount Pleasant all morning,
Yeah.
that, hey, whatever you're doing has us in gridlock over here all morning, and then we got it exiting from the other direction. And Rusty was making the point last night that if you watch the camera,
Mhm.
and if you see the traffic counts, we were traffic allowed 1,500 cars per hour from 8 AM to noon.
To here.
So 1,500 cars, our beach plan tells us we have about 1,700 parking spaces. So those were gone in the first hour, and then you had 3 more hours of 4,500 more cars without a place to go, so it backed up coming on. And then at 2 o'clock, or whenever people started, then it started backing up, going out, and it was the same 1,500 cars per hour leaving that
Mhm.
backed up coming on in the morning. And, I'll just say that, talked to Stantec very briefly, and they did indicate that that's about the carrying capacity of a one-lane suburban road. You're not gonna get much more efficient than the 1,500. The point that was made in the Public Safety Committee meeting was that actually on that day leaving, once you were on the connector, it was smooth sailing, so that the connector could have, to Sandy's point, it could have been optimized within the community, getting onto the connector to get that number up a little bit. Maybe you could have gotten it to 17 or 1800 flowing off. And if you were able to do that, would that have taken your, we heard examples of from 41st to 14th took 2 hours. It's never gonna be quick, but maybe it goes from 2 hours to 40 minutes. Still a long time, but not 2 hours to go.
I live-
And would that have been, could management or something have gotten you onto the connector a little bit quicker again to kind of go from 1,500 cars an hour to 1,800 an hour?
Hammering and cutting through everything. Doesn't matter. You can't get back out of Palm. So there, I don't know how they count cars, but it's a lot more than 1,500 cars.
Well, 1,500 an hour.
That time
Five
it passed
hours.
by the meter.
Yeah, for 5 hours.
Yeah.
I mean, that's.
Is the meter embedded up here on
Yeah.
the Mount Pleasant side?
I think it's,
No.
well, it's shown on
Is
the
there-
map at the top of the connector.
Oh, is it? Okay.
I don't know if it's correct at the top, but it's somewhere on the span of the connector.
And I really don't know where all these cars are going. I mean, there's not that many parking spots on Palm.
Well, I think, I would guess that that's part of it, that the 1,700 available spaces are gone, in the first couple of hours, and then I think, but that is, and I don't know if I don't think the group was there, but Stantec is, we've asked Stantec for a proposal to study the pinch points getting onto the connector. I don't know if that's gonna, I don't know if council has a willingness to do that or an interest in doing that, and I'm sure it's somewhat dependent on the cost. I don't know if that's a $5,000 weekend or if that's a $20,000. So, they could.
What was this done, a $15,000 program we did?
22.
I don't think it was that much. Could have been.
They were updating some of what had already been done.
Yeah.
Chemicals.
Personally, I don't know what the value of this study was. I really don't care about animals.
Well, I can tell you, it's just kind of to facilitate discussion outside of the box, because we have limitations.
Yeah.
And it was just to try to quit beating your head against the wall, I guess.
Well, and the
Something else.
sign telling people how long it's gonna take has to be on the other side of the connector coming on.
Yeah, they don't read that either.
And I think the bus program, it makes a lot of sense, but no one uses it.
No, because they can't bring stuff with them.
Exactly. It's hard to carry cases of beer. on the bus.
Yeah, you
Have
can't
it
bring your
on your
beer with
bicycle.
You can't get your bicycle on.
Electric
I
bike.
used to use my belt, not have a six-pack.
Yeah.
That's right. I thought you had one of
Ice
those
was a
slings.
problem.
No, liters, carry liters.
Yep.
A lot easier.
Well, anything else, Jeffrey, it confirms
I
that
appreciate it.
there are no easy solutions. I think there are a lot of people that kind of look at it and say, oh, it's super simple.
No, it's
Not.
This, you hire,
2 lanes off, connected. It's the only way to
Well,
do
we
it.
had those good
Double
ideas.
bridged. But
2
a
lanes going the other way, you have to.
toll booth.
No other answer.
I think we have to.
You have to. And you don't need the bike lane on that side because that's the whole problem with getting across the road. You want the bike lane.
Nowhere to go.
Get rid of the one bike lane on this side
Get run
because you don't
over.
really want it anyway.
yeah,
Yeah.
one,
Yeah.
2-lane,
Yeah.
2-way bike traffic on one side and 3 lanes, 2 going on.
and that way you can have a legitimate emergency
You know what
lane.
we asked for?
in the
Yeah, it
middle.
is. There's nothing else to do.
We're
You
only
have to
so
have,
big.
the problem with cars, you have double yellow lines. You're never supposed to cross a double yellow line.
Oh, but you can if you're parking.
And you have them on the other side, the pedestrian side as well. So it's either the bikers and walkers are gonna get hit, or the cars are gonna get hit by the emergency services truck.
Yeah, I see this.
It's gonna
all right,
happen.
we want to, so as part of our work next month on the comprehensive plan, we will make a note to pay special attention to the transportation section.
And we'll-
And maybe bolster up the recommendations in there concerning the pension.
And I would also, personally, I think we need to bring in our police chief and our fire chief to give us their opinions on emergency services on and off the island during highly congested times.
They've done that
Yeah, they
before.
did do that.
But I'd like to see it in writing.
Yeah.
I mean, this is in their wheelhouse. This is, what they do for a living. I mean, we don't have private helicopters to transport people on and off the island.
That's an option.
Where do you land? There's no flat, you have to land on a rooftop somewhere.
I did have
Behind
one
Harris
figured
Teeter.
out for the recreation department years ago.
We do have one. I mean, we do have
Access.
County Park or the rec center are the two,
Right.
are the two sites.
We can't use Wild Dunes Golf Course,
It's under construction.
the harbor, the old landing pad.
Yeah,
The Wilson Memorial Airport,
There you go.
yeah.
somewhere I have the flight chart for landing and taking off from that. Wow, in the 50s. All right,
Cool.
Good?
you got anything else, Ron?
I do not. We
Motion.
needed a motion to, we got a motion.
Motion?
And a